You're watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. From Toronto, Ontario, I'm Samia Sayed. Welcome to the show. Coming up, we have an interview with Sister Salma from META, or Muslim Educators of Toronto Association, to speak to us about implementing anti-Islamophobia resources in elementary schools. But first, the headlines. Federal Safety Minister says Ottawa protest has ties to far-right extremist group. First Nations leaders announced 54 unmarked child graves in Saskatchewan. Canadian college offers bursary for Afghan refugees. Australia to list Palestinian group Hamas as terrorist organization. And now the details. A group of Ottawa protesters who were charged with allegedly planning to kill police officers were linked to a far-right extremist group, according to Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino. Mendicino's spokesperson Alex Cohen associated the protesters to Diagolon, identified by the Canadian Anti-Hate Network as a neo-fascist militia that cultivates conspiracy theories. Jeremy Mackenzie, the recognized leader of the group, has on several occasions called to burn down Parliament and was released of weapons charges in January. On their messaging page on Telegram, local media sources say that people have cheered their actions in Alberta and shared pictures of Prime Minister Trudeau's head on a pike. First Nations leaders announced Tuesday that radar scans have possibly discovered 54 unmarked child graves in 2 former residential school sites at Kisiku's First Nation in Saskatchewan. Chief Lee Kitchemonia says that the graves could belong to murdered children and contain evidence, but the winter season hindered further investigation. Assembly of First Nations Chief Roseanne Archibald says that she does not want to refer to these institutions as schools anymore, considering how they have torn apart families. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission estimates about 4,000 to 6,000 Indigenous children who died in residential schools. Jawed, a newly arrived Afghan refugee, has taken advantage of a tuition bursary being offered by CDI College to upgrade his skills and help him find work in Canada. CDI is offering a 25% bursary to Afghan refugees for their diploma programs across their 20 Canadian campuses. Jawed is one of the first recipients. He praised the program and encouraged others to join. He lives now with his wife and children in Calgary, Alberta. The program will operate until the end of 2022. Canada is expected to welcome nearly 40,000 Afghan refugees in the coming months. Australia will add the entirety of Palestinian group Hamas to its list of banned terrorist organizations. The Australian government, which had listed Hamas's military wing as a terrorist group in 2003, will join the US, the UK, and Israel in extending the designation to its political branch. Home Affairs Minister Karen Andrews says that Hamas's views are deeply disturbing and their hateful ideologies have no place in Australia. The proposal has drawn sharp criticism from the Australia-Palestine Advocacy Network, whose president Bishop George Browning said that there will be more suffering for the 2 million people surviving under a 15-year Israeli blockade. That's it for the news. Now with us is Sister Salma Nakhuda, the co-chair and founding member of Muslim Educators of Toronto Association, or META. Sister Salma is an elementary teacher working in the Toronto District School Board. She strives to honor the multiple aspects of students' identities and include student voices and equity in her teaching. Welcome, Sister Salma. It's great to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much. My honor, my privilege to be here.
So META is a relatively new association. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
So META is Muslim Educators of Toronto Association. I'm one of the founding members. We are a group of TDSB staff, and we're not limited to educators. So all staff within the TDSB that identify as Muslim. And we have just launched very recently in October of last year. There were a group of Muslim educators that were networking informally from quite some time, over 2 years. We just decided to make it formal. And so it is a group that strives to honor and the identities of Muslim staff and students and communities within the TDSB. And we try to represent the Muslim staff and students.
Mm-hmm. Now, Ontario already has MENO, which is the Muslim Educators Network of Ontario. How does META differ?
So MENO is a provincial organization. It works at the provincial level to advocate for Muslim students and parents and communities. META aims to do this at the local level. So it's only for TDSB because each board has its very own unique situations, and so it's important to have an organization working at the local level too. And that's the reason why a lot of the different boards have Muslim affinity groups. Like, for example, the York region has AIMS, which is the Alliance of Educators for Muslim Students, and that it has been an inspiration for us. That's our sister organization. Similarly, Durham has MEND, and Peel has its own board. So its own affinity group. So yes, there are Muslim affinity groups in every board, not every board, a lot of the boards, but there wasn't a Muslim affinity group in TDSB. So
META came up with an anti-Islamophobia resource recently. Can you share with us what this is?
So January 29th is the annual National Day of Remembrance of the Quebec City mosque attack and the day against action against Islamophobia. And especially in the light of the tragic incidents that happened in London, Ontario last year, we felt it was really important to bring out a resource that that helped in the classrooms to teach the students about Islamophobia, what it is, and how to deal with it. And because it is in the classrooms and the schools that it's very important that the learning starts there, and also that as educators, we try to create safe spaces for the kids in our classrooms and our schools. So it's very important that, it's like the teachers are the frontline workers in the fight against racism. So the learning starts there. So it was very important that we bring out a resource for the students.
You say this resource is for students and schools, but what ages specifically did you target?
Okay, so we actually went all the way from kindergarten to grade 12. So we have 3 different resources. There is one resource from kindergarten to grade 2. There's one from grade 3 to grade 5. And these 2 resources are based on a mentor text, a book, In My Mosque, which is written by M.O. Yüksel. And the grade 6 to grade 12 resources are they have been curated by Meta, and they are from the website islamophobiais.com. And so the resources come with with a slide deck that is ready to go. So it's very easy to use. It's highly engaging for the students. It is developmentally appropriate. And we try to use Dr. Goldie Mohammed's equity framework to develop the lesson as well.
And that was my next question. Can you actually tell us about what Dr. Goldie Mohammed's equity framework is?
So Dr. Goldie Mohammed, in her book Cultivating Genius, she has described the equity framework, which is a 4-step framework. And this is something that educators keep in mind when they are developing lessons, preparing lessons for their classrooms. So in addition to the curriculum, expectations, which is the development of skills and intellect, she has also stressed on identity and criticality. So identity is that the students need to understand their own identity. They need to explore their own identity, understand and reflect upon it, and the identities of others around them. And the criticality piece is where they are aware of they are aware of social injustice. They are aware of issues surrounding power and privilege, and so when they learn to critically evaluate things around them, and so we tried to use her framework as our guideline. And so we made sure that there was a criticality piece, an identity piece, and so on and so forth in our lessons.
Mhm. Now, you said that this resource is for educators widely, which includes parents as well. Can you give them some sort of instructions on how to implement or even utilize these resources?
Yes, they are very easy to use even for parents, because in every slide we have added teacher prompts at the bottom. So that is like, what kind of guiding questions do you ask when doing this in the classroom? So the book is available in Toronto Public Library, for example, or they can purchase the book. And then once they read the book too, they are, for example, for kindergarten to grade 2, and for grade 3 to grade 5, they can read the book with their child, and then they can do the slide deck with it, because it has the prompts on what sort of questions you have to ask. It has additional resources if the conversation with your child should go that way, and you want to know what you can tell them or how you can tell them. We have added a lot of additional resources at the end of the slide deck as well.
Mhm. We've had people come on the show, guests, who have told us about anti-Islamophobia resources for high schools, but this time you've focused a little bit more on elementary schools. What are some of the challenges that you face when implementing these kinds of resources in elementary schools specifically?
Yes, it's very interesting you say that, because before we started developing these resources, I had done some research on what is out there for small kids, for younger kids, and there's not a lot of material out there. There's a lot of material for grown-ups. There's a lot of material, anti-Islamophobia resources for high school students or kids in higher grades, but there's not a lot for kids in lower grades. And I think one of the reasons why is because this is such a sensitive topic, and it is a very challenging topic to have a conversation to have in the classroom. It has to be handled very carefully, and there's a lot of complex issues at work here. So, coming from the educator's point of view, we tried to see what was developmentally appropriate for the students. So if you see in the K-2 resources, we have not explicitly named Islamophobia. We just talk about a safe space. How do we make our spaces safe, and what makes them safe? The reason why is because we kept going back to the curriculum expectations, the Ontario curriculum expectations in subject areas like language and social studies, and especially health, because we wanted to know what is appropriate to be handled at that age, and how do you start that conversation? Because we often use, as an educator, we often use books as our springboard for conversations in the classroom, to facilitate and to initiate these conversations. So it was very important. And then when we go to the grade 3 to 5 resource is when we start naming it. So we name what is Islamophobia in a very simple way, in a way that the students can understand. And what can you do to disrupt it? What can you do?
That is a great lesson. Unfortunately, this is all the time that we have for today's interview. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sister Salma, and sharing us what Meta has been doing to integrate anti-Islamophobia resources into Toronto schools.
Thank you for having me.
You are watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. That's all from our Toronto studios tonight. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more Canadian Muslim content. Stay safe, and until next time.